Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour. Los Angeles and other cities across the U.S. brace for more protest. Over 400 people arrested, including 330 undocumented migrants. ICE raids continue in Omaha, detaining dozens. Deal done to get U.S. China trade truce back on track. Trump says U.S. tariffs will be set at 55%, China's at 10%. U.S. to pull out personnel from West Asia over security threats from Iran. Trump says would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. U.S. envoy Witkoff to meet Iran's foreign minister on Sunday. Israeli firing kills around 60 people in Gaza. Israeli military says forces fired warning shots in view of threat posed. India-EU free trade agreement feasible by the end of 2025. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says balanced, ambitious and mutually beneficial FTA will elevate strategic partnership. Our top story: protests against Donald Trump's harsh immigration policies spread on Wednesday across the United States despite a military-backed crackdown in Los Angeles and threats by the U.S. president to use heavy force as cities across the U.S. brace for more protest. Demonstrators marched, danced and sang in front of the Edward R. Roybal Federal Building as members of the California National Guard and Los Angeles Police Department stood in formation nearby. In Los Angeles, nearly 400 people have so far been arrested, including 330 undocumented migrants and 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction, including one for the attempted murder of a police officer. Two Los Angeles County men have been charged by federal authorities with possessing Molotov cocktails during recent immigration enforcement demonstrations in downtown Los Angeles and Paramount.
This is just the two cases we have been able to charge now. We are looking at hundreds of people. We have video, we have FBI collecting video, we are collecting body cam, we're collecting social media, we're collecting everything. And we're going to take our time, we're going to identify people. They think the mask is saving them, it's not saving them. We're going to identify them and we will bring charges. We will bring charges for attacks on local law enforcement. We have a federal statute for that. In a time of civil unrest, we can charge them with a federal statute.
Meanwhile, U.S. troops deployed in Los Angeles are authorized to detain people until police can arrest them, their commanding officer said on Wednesday, as hundreds of Marines prepared to move into the city as it entered a sixth day of protest. Protests over President Donald Trump's immigration raids have spread from California to other U.S. cities, with hundreds of nationwide demonstrations planned for Saturday. During an interview outside the White House in Washington, a national security expert said Donald Trump's move to deploy the National Guard troops and Marines to Los Angeles, California to respond to immigration protests.
The governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles said things are perfectly under control, and yet the president has insisted on deploying not even a small number of troops. Right now, we're seeing 4,000 National Guard troops that have been called up and 700 Marines. This is more troops than we have in Iraq and Syria combined right now to respond to protests that the local law enforcement say are relatively under control.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass condemns Donald Trump's deployment of U.S. Marines and National Guard personnel in response to immigration protests and called for an end to the federal immigration sweeps that have disrupted cities across the region.
Us represent cities in this region where immigrants are key, and if in some cases not the majority of the population. To have people live in fear like it is today is just unacceptable. So we started off by hearing the administration wanted to go after violent felons, gang members, drug dealers. But when you raid Home Depots and workplaces, when you tear parents and children apart, and when you run armored caravans through our streets, you're not trying to keep anyone safe. You're trying to cause fear and panic. And when you start deploying federalized troops on the heels of these raids, it is a drastic and chaotic escalation and completely unnecessary.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that the tariffs on Chinese goods will be reduced to 55% under a new trade agreement. With this decision, the U.S. and China have called a truce in their ongoing trade row. The deal includes a provision in which China will supply the U.S. with rare earth elements vital to major U.S. companies. The deal also removes Chinese export restrictions on rare earth minerals and allows Chinese students access to U.S. universities. Under the latest agreement, the U.S. will impose 55% tariffs across the board on Chinese goods, down from 145%. In return, Beijing will impose a 10% tariffs on goods it imports from the U.S., down from 125%. Trump said a final deal is subject to approval from him and Chinese President Xi Jinping.
I would, but I don't think we're going to have that necessity. We made a great deal with China. We're very happy with it. We have everything we need, and we're going to do very well with it, and hopefully they are too.
And U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called on China to uphold its commitments under an initial U.S. trade agreement reached in Geneva last month, hours after he and other U.S. and Chinese officials agreed on a new framework to implement the deal. Wednesday's announcement from Trump comes after a series of marathon negotiations were held between the U.S. and China in London. Iran's defense minister has said his country would target U.S. military bases in the region if conflict breaks out with the United States days ahead of a planned sixth round of Iran-U.S. nuclear talks. Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh said on Wednesday that Iran would target U.S. military bases in the region if the U.S. attacked it first. Washington and Tehran have held 5 rounds of talks since April as Trump seeks an agreement that would place constraints on Iran's uranium enrichment. Trump has repeatedly threatened Iran with bombing if it does not reach a new nuclear deal. The next round of talks is due this week, with Trump saying negotiations would be held on Thursday, while Tehran says they will take place on Sunday in Oman. Iran is expected to hand a counter-proposal to a previous U.S. offer for a nuclear deal it rejected, with Trump saying that Iran was becoming much more aggressive in nuclear talks. And the United States is preparing partial evacuation of its Iraqi embassy and will allow military dependents to leave locations around the Middle East due to heightened security risk in the region. U.S. President Donald Trump said U.S. personnel were being moved out of the Middle East because it could be a dangerous place, adding that the United States would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. A U.S. official said the State Department had authorized voluntary departures from Bahrain and Kuwait. The State Department updated its worldwide travel advisory on Wednesday evening to reflect the latest U.S. posture. The decision by the U.S. to evacuate some personnel comes at a volatile moment in the region. Billionaire Elon Musk said on Wednesday that he regrets some of the posts he made last week about U.S. President Donald Trump in a message on his social media platform X. Trump and Musk began exchanging insults last week on social media, with Musk describing the president's sweeping tax and spending bill as a disgusting abomination. Musk's post comes days after Trump said his relationship with Musk was over. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump appreciated Elon Musk's apology hours after Musk expressed regret. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt also told reporters at a briefing that the administration has made no efforts to review government contracts with Musk companies.
The president acknowledged the statement that Elon put out this morning, and he is appreciative of it, and we are continuing to focus on the business of the American people. No efforts have been made on that front as far as I'm aware.
And U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance explained that President Donald Trump was frustrated with billionaire Elon Musk but doesn't want a long-term feud with him. Speaking to reporters, Vance said he spoke to both Musk and Trump to ensure the Tesla boss remains supportive of the president. He also noted that the Trump team appreciates Musk's early efforts to help streamline government operations. And clashes between followers of Bolivian ex-President Evo Morales and police clearing roadblocks left 2 officers dead and several wounded. Supporters of Morales, who led the Andean country from 2006 to 2019, began blocking key roads on June 2nd over the electoral authorities' refusal to allow him to run for a 4th term in August 17 elections. The protests have since snowballed into a wider revolt over President Luis Arce's handling of a deep economic crisis marked by severe shortages of hard currency and fuel. Now, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has won a vote of confidence in his pro-EU government after his political camp narrowly lost the recent presidential election. Some 243 parliamentarians voted in favour of the coalition government, with 210 voting against and no abstentions. This vote has been seen by some as a piece of political theatre on the part of Tusk, a way of showing his broad coalition still has a mandate despite the presidential election defeat. Wednesday's vote was also a formality. Tusk's coalition has a 12-seat majority in the lower house, the Sejm, and only a simple majority in the presence of half the 460 parliamentarians was required to win. U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy appointed a new vaccine advisory group to replace the one he dismissed earlier in the week, including on the new panel a biochemist who warned against COVID jabs. Kennedy, President Donald Trump's point man on health, who is an admitted vaccine skeptic, sacked all 17 experts of the advisory panel to the main U.S. health agency on Monday, accusing them of having conflicts of interest with pharmaceutical companies. The unprecedented move has been slammed by Democratic opposition, not to mention health experts who warn of an attack on medical expertise. Kennedy announced on Wednesday that he had appointed 8 new members to the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves prioritised spending on health, defence and infrastructure projects to drive economic growth in a bid to reboot the Labour government's offer of a brighter future to increasingly disillusioned voters. Setting out day-to-day budgets for government departments from 2026 to 2029 and investment plans out to 2030, Reeves said the priorities of her spending review were those of the working people whose interests Labour has said it will focus on. German Chancellor Merz and Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen agreed on the need to urgently curb immigration to maintain social cohesion and strengthen EU rules on asylum. Both leaders emphasized that uncontrolled migration threatens to undermine social cohesion across Europe. Chancellor Merz praised Denmark's long-standing firm approach to migration, calling it an example for others. Prime Minister Frederiksen echoed those concerns, stressing the importance of a common European solution. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Austria mourns 10 victims of school shooting with memorial service. Devastating wildfires ravage West Canada. In June, strawberry moon rises over Dubai Towers. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Australia said it is very confident in the future of a U.S. agreement to equip its Navy with a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines after the Trump administration put the pact under review. The 2021 AUKUS deal joins Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States in a multi-decade effort to balance China's growing military might. It would arm Australia with a fleet of cutting-edge nuclear-powered submarines from the United States and they provide for cooperation in developing an array of warfare technologies. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has advised Australia and the United Kingdom that it is reviewing AUKUS. Australia plans to acquire at least 3 Virginia-class submarines from the United States within the next 15 years, eventually manufacturing its own subs. The U.S. Navy has 24 Virginia-class vessels which can carry cruise missiles, but American shipyards are struggling to meet production targets set at 2 new boats each year. A public memorial service takes place in the main square of the Austrian city of Graz the day after 10 people were shot dead at a school by a former pupil. Hundreds gathered in the city's main square where candles, flowers and handwritten notes surrounded a temporary memorial honoring the victims. Austrian president delivered a somber address calling the tragedy a wound in our national conscience. Security has been tightened at schools across the country and the government has announced plans to review firearm regulations and school safety protocols. The shooter, identified as a 19-year-old former student, was taken into custody shortly after the incident. Authorities continue to investigate the motive. And people in the northern Irish town of Ballymena are in fear of their lives after a second night of rioting amid fears that the violence could spread across the British province. Rioters attacked police and set fires in the streets of Northern Ireland's Ballymena on Wednesday. Police deployed water cannon against the crowd for the second successive night, but the clashes were nothing like the previous night that left 17 officers injured and led to 5 arrests. The violence flared on Monday after 2 14-year-old boys were arrested and appeared in court accused of a serious sexual assault on a teenage girl in the town. The Trump administration is pressurizing Mexico to investigate and prosecute politicians with suspected links to organized crime and to extradite them to the United States if there are criminal charges to answer there, according to sources familiar with the matter. The request raised at least 3 times by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his team in bilateral meetings and conversations with Mexican officials seek to push President Claudia Sheinbaum's government to investigate current elected officials and launch an unprecedented crackdown on narco-corruption. In their discussion, the U.S. officials have called for action against several politicians from Sheinbaum's own Morena party and threatened to levy further tariffs if Mexico did not take action. A fast-moving wildfire near a Canadian town outside Vancouver has intensified with helicopter battling fierce flames above dense forest land. The fire has engulfed approximately thousands of hectares as the blaze continues to spread rapidly due to dry conditions, high winds and unseasonably warm temperatures. Emergency officials have issued evacuation orders and alerts for several nearby communities, warning residents to be prepared to leave at short notice. Several roads have been closed and firefighting crews from neighboring provinces have been deployed to reinforce local response teams. A death toll from floods in South Africa's Eastern Cape province has risen to 49. Parts of South Africa have been lashed by heavy rain and snow since the weekend in a severe winter cold front that has disrupted transport and power networks. Earlier, a school bus was swept away by floods near Matata and the Eastern Cape Premier, which caused death of 6 people, with 4 were still missing. Floods have become more severe in South Africa as the impacts of climate change are felt. In Nepal's opposition parties continued to obstruct the House of Representatives' business on Wednesday, demanding the Home Minister's resignation over the visa scam. The obstruction by the opposition has continued for the past 2 weeks. In the session on Wednesday afternoon, lawmakers representing the opposition, including the CPN, stood from their respective seats demanding Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak stepped down from the post. The HOR session was postponed before it could enter its agenda. Despite several rounds of meetings between the ruling and opposition parties on resolving the issue, consensus has not been reached yet. The session has been rescheduled for 3 p.m. on June 12, Thursday. Israel's parliament rejected a preliminary vote to dissolve itself, the Knesset said in a statement, after an agreement was reached regarding a dispute over conscription. The vote, which could have been a first step leading to an early election that polls show Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would lose, was rejected, with 61 lawmakers opposing it to 53 supporting it. The Knesset consists of 120 seats, and the majority needed to pass the vote was 61 lawmakers. This gives Netanyahu's ruling coalition further time to resolve its worst political crisis yet and avoid a ballot which would be Israel's first since the eruption of the conflict with Hamas in Gaza. Netanyahu has been pushing hard to resolve a deadlock in its coalition over a new military conscription bill, which has led to the present crisis. And hours after Australia, along with its allied countries, including Britain and Canada, imposed coordinated sanctions on two far-right Israeli cabinet ministers for their alleged roles in serious human rights violations, Israeli Finance Minister has issued a strong rebuttal. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich dismissed the sanctions as useless and warned the sanctioning countries about their left-wing governments and the influx of Muslim immigration they are experiencing.
These sanctions don't interest me, and I have no business in these anti-Semitic countries, so I'm not going to go there either. By the way, you have to be careful. It's not the countries, it's the left-wing governments of these countries that simply converted to Islam because of Muslim immigration there. I think there will be a reaction, and in the end, the right will return there.
Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces on Wednesday said its fighters seized a strategic zone on the border with Egypt and Libya as the regular army announced its withdrawal from the area. The announcements came a day after the army accused forces loyal to Eastern Libyan commander Khalifa Haftar of launching a cross-border attack alongside the RSF, the first allegation of the direct Libyan involvement in the Sudanese war. Since April 2023, the war in Sudan has pitted Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan against his erstwhile ally Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, who leads the RSF. In a statement on Wednesday, the RSF said its fighters had liberated the strategic triangle area, adding that army forces had retreated southward after suffering heavy losses. The army said on Tuesday that Haftar's troops, in coordination with the RSF, attacked its border positions in a move it called a blatant aggression against Sudan. It also described the latest clash as part of a broader foreign-backed conspiracy. Brazil's Supreme Court reached a majority Wednesday in favor of toughening social media regulation in a groundbreaking case for Latin America on the spread of fake news and hate speech. The South American country's highest court is seeking to determine to what extent companies like X, TikTok, Instagram and Facebook are responsible for removing illegal content and how they can be sanctioned if they do not. The judge's final ruling will create a precedent that will affect tens of millions of social media users in Brazil. By Wednesday, 6 of the court's 11 judges had ruled in favor of higher accountability, meaning sites should monitor content and remove problematic posts on their own initiative without judicial intervention. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. June's full moon, known as the strawberry moon, cast a soft golden pink glow as it rose gracefully above the sleek skyline of Dubai. Towering skyscrapers like the Burj Khalifa and Marina Towers were silhouetted against the luminous orb, creating a breathtaking contrast between nature's celestial beauty and modern architectural marvels. The U.S. Army parachute exhibition team, known as the Golden Knights, have been practicing ahead of a planned parachute jump into Washington, D.C. as part of Saturday's military anniversary and parade. The celebration for the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, which will coincide with U.S. President Donald Trump's 79th birthday, includes an Army birthday festival on the National Mall and will culminate with a parade through the Capitol. Fans paid homage to Beach Boys co-founder Brian Wilson after it was announced he had died at the age of 82. A large blue wreath of flowers were laid on the band's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on Wednesday to commemorate his passing. Some left handwritten notes to tribute to the man behind hits like God Only Knows, Good Vibrations and many more. Organization for Rescue and Research of cetaceans dragged a humpback whale visibly distressed and entangled in a rope swimming just south of Sydney Harbour. The footage shows the whale struggling as it tries to surface and dive, the rope cutting into its skin and restricting its movement. Wildlife rescue teams have launched an urgent search operation along Australia's east coast in a bid to locate and free the whale and detangle it. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Does India trust Donald Trump? External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar replies. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal invites Swedish businesses to be an integral part of India growth story, engages with leading Swedish and Indian businesses and leaders. We'll get you weather updates. Temperatures continue to soar across North India.
Embark on a timeless journey. Unravel the mysteries of a grandiose era. A treasure trove of royal and sacred complexes, temples, shrines, pillared halls, mandapas, rock-cut memorials and more. A spectacular setting of rugged landscape and exemplary workmanship, representing the best of Dravidian architecture. Every structure carved out as a unique artistic creation. A heritage landmark that reflects pure magnificence, integrated within its natural environment. An unexplored haven for nature and adventure enthusiasts. An imposing heritage reflected in its street bazaars and annual festivals of music and culture. Come, be mesmerized by the glorious capital of the Vijayanagar Empire.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. Los Angeles and other cities across the U.S. brace for more protests. Over 400 people arrested, including 330 undocumented migrants. ICE raids continue in Omaha, detaining dozens. Deal done to get U.S. China trade truce back on track. Trump says U.S. tariffs will be set at 55%, China's at 10%. U.S. to pull out personnel from West Asia over security threats from Iran. Trump says would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Israeli firing kills around 60 people in Gaza. Israeli military says forces fired warning shots in view of threat posed. An India-EU free trade agreement feasible by end of 2025. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar says balanced, ambitious and mutually beneficial FTA will elevate strategic partnership. Alright, we'll get you the live visuals from Los Angeles of the protests that are happening. Protests against Donald Trump's harsh immigration policies that spread on Wednesday across the United States despite a military-backed crackdown in Los Angeles and threats by the U.S. President to use heavy force as cities across the U.S. brace for more protest. So these are the live visuals that we are getting you from Los Angeles. Demonstrators marched, danced and sang in front of the Edward R. Roybal Federal Building as members of the California National Guard and Los Angeles Police Department stood in formation nearby. To get you the backgrounder, nearly 400 people have so far been arrested, including 330 undocumented migrants and 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction, including one for the attempted murder of a police officer. You can see in the visuals, these are the live visuals that we are getting you from Los Angeles. People are being arrested, protesters in fact, and nearly 400 people have so far been arrested, including 330 undocumented migrants and 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction. And also, 2 Los Angeles County men have been charged by federal authorities with possessing Molotov cocktails using recent immigration enforcement demonstrations in downtown Los Angeles and Paramount. The curfew issued for parts of downtown Los Angeles last night, and it continues. And the police department said that Mayor Karen Bass said the number of people arrested last night was minor and she hopes no one is arrested tonight. But again, we are getting you these visuals where protesters are being arrested in Los Angeles. Moving further, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar paid an official visit to Brussels from 9th to 11th June. During the visit, the minister spoke at the German Marshall Fund Brussels Forum 2025, where he highlighted the importance of India's relationship with the European Union. Dr. Jaishankar stated that India gives pretty high priority to its relations with the EU, highlighting the growing interest in Europe over the past decade. Dr. Jaishankar expressed optimism about the India-EU free trade agreement, saying that discussions have been positive and that the agreement is within sight of being finalized by the end of the year.
We are really looking at deepening our ties. So the centerpiece is the FTA, of course, which has been under negotiation for some time now. But everything that I heard, including this morning from Commissioner Shevchovich, was very positive. A lot has been done, and everything that I heard on this trip gives me the confidence that it's within sight,
Yes.
that by the end of the year it is feasible to do this.
And while speaking at GMF Brussels Forum 2025, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar said that there is a complex equilibrium in the world as India and China have risen to power, and these countries also happen to be neighbors.
We have a situation where China and India, who are, who stand out because they're the only two countries with over 1 billion people, but also because they are two civilizational states in a way. They have, you see a kind of a parallel rise. The Chinese started their modernization ahead of us because I think we had at that time governments perhaps who didn't do what they should have done in those early years. But be that as it may, you have a rise of China, you have a rise of India. Sure. Now each one is creating a certain new equilibrium between them and the world, the rising power in the world. And then a much more complex equilibrium between the two rising powers, who also happen to be neighbors and who sometimes have common neighbors as well.
Dr. Jaishankar also addressed India's neutral stance on the Russia and Ukraine conflict, which has drawn criticism from the EU for not taking a definitive side. He said they don't believe that differences can be resolved through war. He explained, emphasizing India's historical grievances and the need for countries to consider their own experiences and interests.
We have felt from the start that even if two countries, two neighbors have differences, even very deep differences, it cannot be settled by recourse to war. Okay. If war has started, you're not going to get, given the situation, you're not going to get a solution out of the battlefield. If you're not going to get a solution out of the battlefield, then the answer is to negotiate. If you are going to negotiate, it makes sense to negotiate directly rather than through very convoluted signaling.
Sure.
So that's been our position.
And when questioned about whether India trusts U.S. President Donald Trump, Dr. Jaishankar responded with a diplomatic yet pragmatic stance. He said that I take the world as I find it. He further added that the aim is to advance every relationship that serves India's interests, and the U.S. relationship is of immense importance.
We do see today that Europe has a distinct position on many issues. Those are not necessarily the positions shared today in the United States. So that's a reality. Now, as a country which is, we are objective about it. We value our relations with US as we do with the EU. We will deal with each one on terms which are best for both of us.
And during his visit to Brussels, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar met European Commissioner for International Partnership, Joseph Sikela. The leaders had conversations focusing on driving forward India-EU engagement in connectivity, IMEC, green shipping and clean energy. Meeting European Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, Maros Sefcovic, in Brussels, Dr. Jaishankar recognized the progress in discussions for a comprehensive, balanced and meaningful FTA agreement between India and the EU. The leaders agreed that it would elevate our strategic partnership that is rapidly acquiring new dimensions and facets. And during the meeting with Roberta Metsola, President of the European Parliament, Dr. Jaishankar praised her positive sentiments on advancing the partnership with India in trade, technology and security. Both discussed ways to further strengthening India-EU parliamentary ties, building upon our shared values of democracy and pluralism. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has invited Swedish business leaders to explore opportunities in India, highlighting the country's complementary strengths and potential for growth through the India-EU Free Trade Agreement. After arriving in Sweden after concluding his successful trip to Switzerland, The minister engaged in a series of meetings with counterpart and business leaders. At the highly productive meeting, the leaders discussed strengthening collaboration across sectors like clean energy, digital technology, climate, healthcare, and life sciences and skill development, among others. Piyush Goyal also addressed the concluding session at the ministerial meeting of the Indo-Swedish Joint Commission for Economic, Industrial and Scientific Cooperation. He highlighted how the exchange of capital, talent and technology forms the backbone of our economic partnership, with science, innovation and technology remaining one of the most dynamic areas of cooperation. The Indian minister also engaged with Swedish business leaders at a dinner reception hosted by Sweden India Business Council and Embassy of India. He emphasized the remarkable progress India has made in technology, innovation and R&D, backed by the strength of our skilled and talented workforce. Piyush Goyal encouraged Swedish businesses to explore opportunities in India with immense potential to collaborate and drive mutual growth.
I've come here to invite Sweden and Swedish businesses, Swedish investors to be an integral part of this growth story. We already have a big presence of 280 Swedish companies in India, most of them manufacturing in India. But I do believe the sky is the limit. There's huge potential awaiting all of us.
Lieutenant General BKGM Lasantha Rodrigo, commander of the Sri Lanka Army, has arrived on an official visit to India from 11th to 14th June. This visit will enhance bilateral military cooperation. Yesterday, on his first day of visit, began with a solemn wreath-laying ceremony at the National War Memorial in New Delhi. General Rodrigo paid tribute to the brave soldiers who made sacrifice for the nation. General Rodrigo was then given a formal Guard of Honor in the South Block lawns. The Guard of Honor was followed with a series of high-level meetings with General N.S. Raja Subramani, Vice Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army, followed by meetings with Chief of the Naval Staff, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh, Chief of Air Staff and Rajesh Kumar Singh. Defence Secretary later, Lieutenant General BKGM Lasantha Rodrigo, was briefed on Operation Sindoor and India's security perspective. On 12 June, Lieutenant General Lasantha Rodrigo is scheduled to visit Jaipur and meet Lieutenant General Manjinder Singh, General Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Southwestern Command. And India is making a strong impression at Indo Defence Expo, one of Southeast Asia's biggest defence exhibitions. From advanced missiles to surveillance systems, the India Pavilion is displaying the latest in defence technology. DD India's Chandni Vasandani gets us this report.
I am at the India Pavilion at the Indo Defence Expo here in Jakarta. Some standout technologies being displayed here today are air-to-air missiles and wheeled armoured platforms. Now, Indonesia, as a coastal country, may be interested in India's Varun Astra, which is already deployed and being used by the Indian Navy. There is also this airborne early warning system for air surveillance, which was already in use during India's Operation Sindoor.
India is bringing its defense capabilities to the global stage at Indo Defence Expo. From June 11 to 14, the country is taking part in one of Southeast Asia's largest defense exhibitions. Some star attractions are on display here that underline India's abilities in land, sea and air warfare. India's growing appeal as a defense exporter is backed by a surge in indigenous R&D, resulting in cost-effective, cutting-edge technology, which could be appealing to countries like Indonesia.
So basically, most of the technology which we are showcasing here, these are already in the service. Indian armed forces are using it. They are quality-wise, they are at par with the internationally available system, and most of the Indian developed system are cost-effective as compared to the other Western countries. So it will be beneficial in terms of quality as well as cost.
Outside the pavilion, nearly a dozen Indian firms are presenting a diverse array of tech, from radar and cyber defense to drone warfare and precision systems. Among these is BrahMos, known as the world's fastest supersonic cruise missile. This joint venture has become a symbol of India's high-tech, high-trust defense export capabilities.
So what we are offering Indonesia is a system which can react very fast, which has minimum maintenance and which is highly accurate. So such sort of a system provides you the required defense posture which any country would like to have in its arsenal.
Indian companies at the Indo Defense this year are showcasing a full spectrum of India's defense manufacturing ecosystem, reflecting the country's drive to become a global hub for defense exports and innovation. Many are hoping to build new partnerships in Southeast Asia as India strengthens its Act East policy and defense diplomacy in the region. This is Chandni Vasandani reporting from Jakarta.
As temperatures continue to soar across the national capital, the Indian Met Department has issued a fresh red alert for Delhi. Delhi baked in extreme heat on Wednesday as the heat index shot up to a scorching 45.5 degrees, marking the fifth consecutive time this month that temperatures have crossed the 40-degree mark. Humidity levels in the capital remain moderate at 39% during the early hours, but the combination of heat and dry southwesterly winds worsen the discomfort. Along with Delhi, a red warning has also been issued for states such as Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan and Punjab. Western Rajasthan is reeling under a severe heat wave with temperatures crossing 47 degrees Celsius in Ganganagar for the second day in a row. The scorching conditions are expected to continue over the next few days. For June 13, an orange alert has been issued for West Rajasthan, while East Rajasthan is under a yellow alert on the same day. Some relief may be on the way as thunderstorm activity is expected between June 15 and 16, which could bring down temperatures. A further drop in temperature is likely in eastern Rajasthan around June 18 to 20 due to those weather changes. All right, we'll go across to our correspondents. Tapas Bhattacharya is joining us from Delhi and Arnisha Dable from Jaipur. Tapas, first I'll come to you. Delhi continued to simmer on Wednesday as the maximum temperature settled at 43.3 degrees Celsius. Tell us, is it going to be the same for the next few days? And when do we expect some respite or relief?
Okay, let me just start with the fact that for the last 2 days, in fact, yesterday and today, Delhi and also nearby areas, for instance, some parts of UP, Haryana, Punjab, they have been all marked for red alert. Now, what red alert means is that the heat wave or heat wave kind of conditions will be prevalent over these areas. Now, the heat wave conditions have been observed over many places of West Rajasthan, Punjab, Jammu, Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, South Haryana, Delhi, at some of the places, and at some isolated places of East Rajasthan and South Uttar Pradesh also. And severe heat wave condition is also reported at some isolated places over West Rajasthan, Punjab, and Jammu Kashmir. So that's one part of it. We expect that the temperature to be like this in the next couple of days. On 13th, one will get some sort of a reprieve from the scorching heat as western disturbance along with the easterlies, that is low-level easterly that is currently prevalent over parts of this area. The combination of these two will lead to a thunderstorm or thunder showers for the northwest part of the country. Now, if you take a close look at the last 2-3 days, you realize that yesterday's temperature, in fact, Delhi has 5 stations where the temperature comes. Day before yesterday, the temperature were out of the 3 places was over 45 or over 45 degrees Celsius. Yesterday, it was only in one place, that was in Ayanagar, that the temperature was at 45 degrees Celsius. Whereas there's a reduction of 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. Now that's going to be the case. That's the temperature that's going to stay with us till 13th. Then there will be a slight reduction in temperature, and again it will go up slightly. But the temperature is expected to hover around this area. The problem is that there is a high intensity of what you call the slight thing that is currently happening there, which is humidity that is there, over 30% humidity, especially in the night, it's there. And that is making life a little difficult for people in the northwest part of the country. The Delhi twist with the monsoon is expected around 27th of June. It might happen little earlier than that. But 27 June is that cutoff that IMD has kept for Delhi and NCR, minus plus 3 to 4 days.
All right, Tabasil, 13, 14 days to go when we see some respite or monsoon, you are saying. But Arnisha, North India caught in the heat grip, causing discomfort and health warnings across the region, and Rajasthan also under red alert. Tell us, what is the situation there in Jaipur and when is it likely to get better?
Right. So Rajasthan is also currently under intense heat wave. Let me tell you, like, it's not the entire Rajasthan which is under red alert. It's just 2 districts of Sri Ganganagar and Hanumangarh, which are the border districts,
Okay.
where the red alert was issued. So let me tell you, yesterday in Sri Ganganagar, the highest temperature reached till 48 degrees. So it is a very intense heat wave, and people were issued such warnings by the IMD, by the hospitals, by the administration to, stay inside and, take proper measures to fight with the heat wave. Let me tell you the other parts of the Rajasthan. So for all over Rajasthan, the highest temperature was around 43 to 44. And in the eastern part of the Rajasthan, there was the temperature was not this high, and they were likely to be thunderstorm and thundershower this week. But for at least for this week, there are gonna be heat wave. Like temperature, the highest temperature will stay around 45 degrees. It is only after, as IMD issued 15th and 16th June, that we might see thunderstorms and showers. Otherwise, the condition gonna stay for some time. And at least this week, we recorded the highest temperature, and just mainly in the parts of the western part, the Sri Ganganagar and Hanumangarh district, not all over Rajasthan. Yeah.
Absolutely, temperature continues to soar across North India. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs, Arnisha and Tapas Bhattacharya. Prime Minister Modi-led government has completed 11 years in office. Up next, we revisit government initiatives in revolutionizing India's digital India. A revolution where technology meets inclusion. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of digital India, initiatives like UPI, GPT are bridging gaps, boosting transparency and bringing governance closer to every citizen, right down to the last mile. Over 44 lakh crore of rupees directly transferred to beneficiaries' accounts, more than 2,500 times jump in UPI transaction volume. Besides, government's program of providing unique identification number or Aadhaar is powering India's digital identity revolution. With over 150 billion authentication transactions, Aadhaar stands as the world's largest digital ID program, empowering 141 crore Indians with a unique 12-digit identity. Aadhaar is a 12-digit unique identity number that can be obtained voluntarily by all residents of India based on their biometrics and demographic data. All right, sports updates now. We'll start with cricket. South Africa bowled Australia out for 212 on day 1 of the World Test Championship 2025 final at Lord's. Kagiso Rabada was the star of the show, picking up a sensational 5-wicket haul. Rabada dismissed openers Usman Khawaja and Cameron Green in 1 over before taking 3 more wickets after tea. Marco Jansen also chipped in with 3 wickets. Australia's Steve Smith and Boy Webster were only notable contributors with the bat, as both scored half-centuries. In response, South Africa lost both their openers in quick succession thanks to brilliant bowling by Mitchell Starc. Wian Mulder and Tristan Stubbs too left early, as South Africa were 43 for 4 at stumps on day 1, trailing Australia by 169. A former West Indies batter Nicholas Pooran has been appointed as the captain of MI New York in the Major League Cricket tournament. Pooran surprised the world on Tuesday by announcing his retirement from international cricket at the age of 29. Since bursting onto the international scene in 2016, Pooran featured in 160 20Is and 61 ODIs. In his debut season in MLC with the MI New York franchise, he made 388 runs in 8 matches. He He scored a century and 250s and finished as the top run getter in the franchise's title-winning season. And the Indian men's hockey team put on a spirited display against Argentina but went down 3-4 in FIH Hockey Pro League in Netherlands. For India, Harmanpreet Singh netted twice while Abhishek added a third. For Argentina, the goals came from Matias Rey, Lucas Martinez, Santiago Tarazona and Lucio Mendez. With all to play for, it was Argentina which came out of the blocks quicker than India. India is currently fourth in the points tally with 15 points from 11 games. The two sides will meet again on Thursday and head coach Craig Fulton will hope his side break the losing streak. And wild giant pandas made a surprise appearance nearby a villager's home in a rural part of northwest China, the rare sighting highlighting the region's thriving biodiversity. Unexpected encounter occurred, pleased the onlookers. That's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.